We must decide, I will go to the higher ground. That's the only way the life of God is blessed. The only way that it comes. You want a joyful walk? You need to keep going higher. You need to get, and if you're not joyful, and if you're listening to this and say, oh, I'd rather just stay where well, you're not going to be joyful, and you wonder why you're not. You want to be joyful? Move ahead. Move ahead. Because God is calling you to move ahead. God is calling you to victory. Because that is what God says. That's what his will is for you. And because God is calling us as a people, as a congregation, to higher ground. There are times, there are special times when there are specific callings to higher ground. In my life, I look back, I saw like 4 seasons where God was just moving. The first one in my life was when he called me, when I was a teenager, to come to him. And I was fighting, and I was trying to stop it. And I had my own plans, and I tried to make a deal with him. I tried to do everything to keep him at bay. But finally, as some of you know, I was hit by a train, literally, and then I was kind of forced. I came to the Lord on a mountain, which was like higher ground, and then God started changing my life. It was a challenge to walk on higher ground. Without getting saved, without being born again, you can't even do anything. But I had to step out. When you have to step out in the Lord. I had to step out, and there was a greater responsibility now on me because I was walking in God. Same with you. The second time when I was about to graduate college, I decided, what do I do in my life? And the Lord interrupted the last year of college by calling me to ministry. He interrupted. It was powerful. It was supernatural. And he said, ministry, and I'm calling you. And so it was a challenge to, again, move to higher ground. Now depend on God. I had to decide what to do. I depend on God for everything, knowing that it would come, but I saw nothing. I saw nothing that I thought I could figure out, but I had to trust God. The Lord said, step out, trust me, come. And the third time was when I was called into ministry with Beth Israel. I was working with disabled children, and I knew that there'd be a time that I would leave there for full-time ministry because of what God had told me. I knew that. But years had gone by. I was ministering in all different ways, but then one time I knew my time was up. And the scripture kept coming to me from Deuteronomy 8 where God said, I'm about to bring you into the promised land. And now you're going to know why I had to humble you. I had to put you in the wilderness. I had to have you in there, and I had to teach you that man doesn't live by bread alone, but you depend on me. Because when I bring you into the land, you got to know, when I bless you, you have to know it's from me. And not get comfortable, not trust in what you have, trust in me. The same God who kept you in the wilderness will keep you there. And so he kept giving me this scripture before it happened, and then all of a sudden, Gary calls me up one day, and I was kind of sick that day, and he said, come on, I have to meet you. He called me like 3 times before I even got home. It was like 3 messages from Gary. So I said, this is strange for Gary to call me like that. And so then he called me to a diner and then said, listen, the pastor's leaving, and I'm asking you to become pastor. And a lot of you know, I said no. That was the first thing I said. I said, no, I can't. I can't because God's called me. It's not Beth Israel. I'm helping Beth Israel, but God's called me. I never thought it was Beth Israel. I can't. So I'm saying I can't answer the call, Gary, because of the calling. He's saying, well, what if the calling is the calling? The calling is the calling. I never thought of that. The calling being the calling. So I said I'd pray about it. And I remember I was leaving the diner, and I just turned on the radio, and something came on. That moment, I won't go into now, but something was said that, like, whoa, just blew me away. And I remember Gary and I just watching the hand of God move powerfully. And having a sense of awe. I remember every night we'd go, when we would go to our homes and go to bed, we'd be exhausted just from what God was doing. It was not easy because looked like everything was going to fall apart and was in flux, but God's hand. He was calling us to higher ground, but that means you got to trust me. Step out. I left my job to go to the congregation, which could never really support anyone. It was about 35 people. It was an outreach of a church at that time. It wasn't even an independent congregation. And it was a little outreach on Friday night, and it was shaky, and it was almost closed down, and then it was closed down. And that's when I was asked to do it. But Lord is saying, no, take me seriously, commit everything to me, walk out, walk. And God did it. God started doing one thing after the other. And the last time, and I mean there's many times in our lives, but major seasons is now. What we saw in the nations was so beyond, and I brought back some of it, and there were times we've just been blown away, was so beyond, and we can't even still put it together. Those who have seen it and those who have heard it, it's still beyond what God is doing and what he is going to do. God is calling us to higher ground. Now he's calling you anyway every day to higher ground. But all the more we need to do it because he's calling us for something. Calling us to be a light to nations.
To find out how you can receive more of Jonathan's teachings, to receive special free gifts, or get in touch, go to hopeoftheworld.org or call toll-free 1-800-YESHUA-1. That's hopeoftheworld.org or call 1-800-YESHUA-1. That's 1-800-937-4821. You can also get more at Jonathan Cahn's Facebook page or write us direct at Hope of the World, Box 1111, Lodi, New Jersey 07644, USA.